Lord, 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 yeah. Mrs. Brown, Mrs. Brown, Mrs. Brown, Mrs. Oh, Lord. Mrs. Brown, wanna hold right down. Yeah, no, no, no. Mrs. Brown, you too wicked. Hey, hey, hey. Mrs. Brown, you can't hold right down. Lord, under attack from friend and foe. From Mrs. Brown and Co. Under attack, Lord, you're firing from her roadside track. Mama, under attack from Heckle and a Jekyll. Them have a bigger time plot. Under attack, Lord, you're firing from a roadside track. Lord, 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 yeah. I wanna make two. I do want to make four. The deal that they were giving, so I walk right out their door. Now Mrs. Brown, them a frown. Her golden goose is gone. She planned a secret war. Said she wanna even the score. Lord, Lord, yeah. Mrs. Brown, Mrs. Brown, Mrs. Brown, Mrs. Oh, Lord. Mrs. Brown, wanna hold right down. Yeah, hold on, Rasta. Mrs. Brown, you too wicked. Hey, hey, hey. Mrs. Brown, wanna hold right down. Lord, under attack from Sergeant and Corporal. Them have a bigger time plot. Under attack, Lord, firing from her roadside track. Mama, under attack from friend and foe. From Mrs. Brown and Co. Under attack, Lord, firing from her roadside track. Lord, 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 yeah. Oh yeah, them too wicked. So yeah, look, Mrs. Brown, them a plot. They plot the liquor summer short. How them a force because of them a loss. How them a. All right, let me say a special greetings and a special welcome to all of you locked into the Civic Vibe space at this time. It is already 6 minutes past the good old hour of 6 o'clock. And welcome, 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 one and all, wherever you are at this time. Be it folks here in Dominica, be it in the region, or even further, a pleasant greetings and welcome to all of you at this time. What I ask of you guys at this time, please share that live information as we are moving on here. Because yes, tonight's program is going to be a very, very interesting one, very informative one that is educational, and the list goes on and on and on. Folks, today it's the 17th day, or the 17th night rather, of December. Basically, we are smack into the Christmas season for those of you who are celebrating this time of year. Advance Christmas season to you guys out there from Civic Vibes. So yes, it is the 17th night of December 2023, and that is where we're going to make a stop and a start in just a while for a very interesting program. And so our persons out there this evening, you know what you have to do. Your responsibility is to share that live information, because you know when we get started, then you may not have the time to do just that. This evening, folks, there is no Alvin Thomas. Alvin Thomas is a no-show tonight. So Alvin, wherever you are this time, I know you are somewhere, brother, doing some good work indeed. So pleasant good evening to you. But hear that. Miss Paula Celestine is here with us tonight. Paula Celestine, you know, is here with Civic Vibes tonight. And so we're going to have Paula Celestine be the co-host of tonight's program. And so we want to thank Paula very much for taking time off her busy schedule. She had to rush to come to you guys.
Baby,
tonight,
come
right? So
in,
just a while we'll be asking Paula for opening remarks indeed. And so as we do, folks, we have a very special invited guest as well in the name of Mr. Bernard Aline.
We're going to discuss tonight a very, very important topic, a very important situation that occurred in Dominica, horrific at that. And so Bernard's voice is going to add much value to that conversation that have been going on in Dominica for some time, where two foreigners, two Canadians at that, they were brutally murdered in the south of Dominica, and two men are now in police custody, the investigation. So folks, stay tuned for that and more in terms of the programming content. Paula, Celestine, a pleasant good evening to you, my dear, and how are you?
Good evening, Lofty. I'm fine, and what about you?
Doing pretty well, pretty well. How are you, Paula? Long time to see.
Oh, Lofty, yes, it's been a very, very long time. But you know, when you are self-employed, it's like sometimes it takes up a lot of your time, and you know how it is in Dominica, so you have to do to survive. I want to say a special good evening to all the listeners, wherever you are this evening, be it you here in Dominica or you overseas. I want to say a special good evening to everybody. I do not want to single out any particular person tonight in the normal way I would have done before because it would have taken up too much time. But I know there are many persons who are very much happy and pleased to hear my voice this evening. And I want to say that even if I had not been here for some time, but I have been doing some follow up with the program. I want to say in a special way, I must thank Mr. Alvin Thomas. Like I don't want to single out any other persons with the usual, like the usual persons I would say hello to. But I want to say a special good evening to Mr. Alvin Thomas and to all the other persons of Civic Vibes who have worked behind the scene. And Lofty, I want to say thank you very much, especially to you, because you've been doing a wonderful job for country, for love of country. And I know there are many persons who are very much proud of you because I meet people on a daily basis and they say, you know, Lofty is doing a very great job and that's a soldier, that's a hero. So I want to say thank you so very much, Lofty, and to all the other persons who have worked behind the scene for the time that I have not been here. I also want to say a special good evening to Mr. Bernard Adin that is here this evening because this is a patriotic brother. And whenever I really have the time, I listen to Mr. Bernard Allen. And I want to say, Mr. Allen, I know you're not in Dominica, but I know your heart is in Dominica. And this is a man who continues to speak out for Dominica, and it's just because of his love for Dominica. So if Mr. Allen could have really done otherwise, he would have been in Dominica. But you know how the system works here? As long as you do not support certain things, it's like you're not being employed. And because of that, persons really have to find for their families. And sometimes we have to say hats off to them, even if they're not really there on the. So, Lofty, sorry. In a very special way, again, thank you very much. And to all the viewers, our listeners, I want to say hats off to you all. Enjoy the holiday season. I don't want to say Christmas because, Lofty, you know what has happened in Dominica here from since 2019, where democracy has died in Dominica with elections that has been calling every December. So I want to say hey, happy holidays when it comes around to all people.
Yes, indeed. Paula, thank you very, very much indeed. I know lots of folks, Paula, the multitudes of folks, they're out there listening to you and loving your voice here on that space after a very long time indeed. Thank you, Paula. Thank you.
Thank you, Lofty.
All right. Folks, let us now move across to the man of the 2 hour, I should say, Brother Bernard Allen. Good evening to you, sir, in a very, very special way, and welcome to Civic Vibes.
Well, good evening to you, Lofty. Good evening, special good evening to Paula. I haven't seen Paula in a while.
Yeah, thank you.
Obviously, she hasn't been on for a while. And good evening to all our Dominicans who are at home and in the diaspora like myself, listening to your program. I would like to greet my family at home, my parents and my sister and her family. My brother is in the US and he probably is not listening, but all the rest of the family at home and just Dominicans generally, just to wish everyone a merry season despite the challenges. I'd also like to, at the very start, extend my condolences to families of bereaved persons. Mr. Ronald Astafan, family to my family, someone I grew up with and very loved young man in the community. I'd like to extend condolences to his parents, to his brothers, and to his sister. And they've also lost their grandmother in the last few days. So I'd like to again extend condolences for that loss. And all the Dominicans who may have suffered loss of family members in one way or the other. And a special condolence message to the communities of Soufriere, Scots Head, and Gallio, and to the family of the two deceased persons. Yeah, I have to be very careful not to be lengthy, Lofty, because I am normally very lengthy, so please forgive me. But yeah. So
brother.
I'll begin by saying that, yeah.
Yeah, Brother Alin, I want to thank you very much on behalf of Civic Vibes and the entire people out there listening and watching to the program tonight. Thank you very much, my brother, for keeping you up tonight. I know sometimes you're normally up with us, but tonight you are there with us, and you'll be saying much more than just calling in or sending a text message, read the conversation. Again, thank you for your sacrifice, bro, indeed. In terms of some bereavement messages that you mentioned before, I'm getting a message here from someone who lives in St. Thomas. That person is saying that a good friend from St. Joseph, but who lives in St. Thomas, died today. And that person mentioned a name here, Mr. Corbett Bully. So, Brother Bully, to you and your family, well, the family of the Bullies at this time, we want to empathize, sympathize, with you at this time in your time of bereavement. All right. So thank you, person listening at this time out of St. Thomas, who basically punched that note right there so that we can send those condolences message across. Paula, it is normally the how you call it, the norm between Alvin and I to share that list in terms of persons, just mentioning some persons by name, persons who are listening and watching to the program. So I guess I will start off that list, Paula, and you'll help me along the way. And after we have done with that, then we will go into the conversation itself. All right. So we have Olivia Esprit listening and watching. Good evening to you. We also have Julie Polidor. She says that she's locked in the Houston area, and as usual, she's there. David Joseph, very patriotic brother as well. Brother David Joseph, always there with Civic Vibes. Thank you very much, my brother. We have Emercia Vigil, as a young lady from Portsmouth area, listening at this time. Good evening to you. Usual Mali Austria, you are there. John Harry, Owen Prosper, Judy Charles St. John, Mavella Defoe is listening and watching. Good evening to you. Twahu Williams, you're there as well. Good evening. Earl Francis. We also have June Charles, Alan Pierre, Brother Pat Corbett up there in the North area. Pat, good evening to you and your family at this time. And the entire North of Dominica. Pat is always representing for the North of Dominica each and every time. Dei Jojo, good evening to you. Feeling down, feeling sick at this time, but Dei, thank you very much for always taking time off to listen to Civic Vibes. Eliza Louise Gomes, you're also there. She's saying Sunday blessings, Lofty, Paula, and Alvin, but tonight is not Alvin. Alvin is out there somewhere. It's Paula tonight and Brother Bernard, okay? Juanita Prince, you are there. She says that New York is locked. We also have Fabi Jones, you're there as well. Justina James, Griffo, Daniel, Bernard, Ulysses, Cara, Alcy, Estela Labassiere, you're also there. Estela Labassiere, good evening to you. Or Estella Labassiere, good evening to you. Mary Laurio, Brother Dory Drago, Lucinda McDowell Thole, that is another patriotic Dominican, always there with Civic Vibes as well. Veronica Pascal, you're joining that gang as well in terms of your being a fan. Caril Fontaine, good evening to you. Brother Dave Bertrand. We also have Carol Olivachi Bruni, Marina Charles, Glenda Lavidou Burton. Glenda, good evening to you. Petra, Sister Petra Carbon George, good evening to you in St. Croix. Doing a very good work for and on behalf of Dominica. Petra, thank you very much each and every time. We also have Veronica Pascal here saying, wow, welcome Paula, we miss you. We have Brother Dave Butcher, and I think I mentioned that name, Ivinia, Joseph, Anitha, Adams, Bernard. Yes, good evening to you. Carol, Jules, Matthew, Lauren, Lestrade, Gandier Deluge, you're also there. Al Charles, Indira, Telemac, Theodora, Anthony, Rosa, Robinson. We also have Adelaide Paul. She's saying good evening to us here, and nice seeing Paula and Bernard tonight. That is coming from Adelaide Paul. My brother, Vieko Webster, you're in the house. Good evening to you. One goes by the name of Dominica Freedom, is watching and listening. Good evening. Rosa Robinson as well. Angela Paul, Ashby Scotland, Chiquito Thomas, Judy Berry, Stephanie John Baptist, and Celia King, brother Julius Cobbett. You too, my brother. Good evening to you. Marietta Gordon, you're also there. Paula, are you seeing any more folks there we want to shout out before we move?
Lofty, I was trying to get access to it, but unfortunately I am not, because I have the phone up on the stand. It's a little bit difficult
that's fine.
for me to
That's
just
fine.
bring up whatever.
Okay, so that's fine. So let me just run through some more and then we'll get cracking here.
Yeah.
Sharon Dorival, good evening. John Francis, Chiquito Thomas, Gertrude Abraham Dijon, Royston Francis, Cyrus Raphael, Larry Lloyd. Who else? Marietta Gordon, Niski Alfred, Jasid, Leroy James, Joseph Parilon, Dana Philbert Peterson. You're also there sitting in the house. Yes. I Dominique is watching as well. Matilda Gilbert, Marlene Shillingford, Janice Felix, Carolyn Warrington, Everson McGlaw, Melta is watching as well. Claudette Durand, Danny Bertrand, and the list goes on and on and on. And so, folks, thank you very much for making Civic Vibes your sport each and every Sunday around that time. All right, folks, as we're about to take flight in just a bit, it's already 25 minutes past 6 o'clock. The topic under the microscope, as it were tonight, it is we are looking into this brutal death of two Canadians / Dominicans in the south of Dominica. And so this evening we are making a statement, and that statement is in terms of topic for tonight's conversation is the brutal death of Mr. Daniel Langlois, and Miss Dominique Marchand and the government of Dominica. Tonight, folks, we are going to connect the dots, as it were. And so Brother Bernard Allen is here. He has been making a number of comments. And so we know he will be doing justice to that conversation tonight. And of course, those of you out there. So you are in tune for a very, very big conversation tonight, indeed. Paula, just before we get going, if Brother Bernard Allen here, anything, Paula, you'd want to say in terms of your opening statements, in terms of, the topic that we're discussing tonight, that gruesome death of two people in the south of Dominica, where two men are now in police custody as the investigation continues.
Yes, Lofty. Lofty, it's rather very sad and unfortunate to know that it didn't have to be these two people. It could be any other people who came to Dominica here and felt that Dominica was a safe place for them to do business, and then found themselves in this kind of situation. And not only that, what I have learned that these people for a number of years been making reports. The people from the communities around have been making reports. I was looking on Facebook and I saw one lady. She was actually saying how she was treated by the wife of Jonathan. And if this could have gone that far, and a number of persons have made reports, I must say, and some people sometimes would say, why do you point fingers at the law or at what is posing to be the government of Dominica? These people came here and they felt that it was a safe place for them to do business. And these people have made several reports. And the law had not seen it fit to do something with the people who actually was a threat to these people who today have lost their lives. Sometimes, like some people would say, some only wait when it reaches their doorstep to act. And I feel this is what that has happened. And we have to pray, God, that these people, although they are deceased, that justice will be given to them. Because if justice is not given to this people, it will make it look like Dominica is a lawless country. Things have gotten out of hand a lot of times with people who have gone to make reports, and they feel that some of them, their rights are taken away from them. And these people, they complain and they complain. And eventually, sometimes they take the law into their hands. Let's say if these people were alive today, and maybe they had been attacked in a way where maybe they had gotten shot and maybe they did not die. And eventually they decided to take the law into their hands. These people would have been blamed. But I'm saying all this to say, the people who have caused this brutal death on this gentleman and his partner, this was not supposed to be. Because after all these years, complaining and complaining and complaining, and they have gone to the law, why didn't this government, which poses as a government, didn't see it fit? I would have, in my case, I would have deported these people. The people who have been at these people, because you come to Dominica, you have invested, you have spent so much money. And if what that I am reading about, that these people who murdered the gentleman and his partner has Dominican passport, they started up their business by the money that they earned from Dominican passport. They became Dominican citizens, not by birth. And they are a threat to other people who came here and invested and came with their money. Something should have been done. But I pray, God, that justice is done.
Yeah.
And Lofty, it's rather very sad because people who are coming to Dominica now, and those who would have wanted to come here to invest, they are saying, let's just wait to see what happens. Because all over the internet, people have learned of what happened in Dominica. And it's rather very sad to know this had to go that far. So let's see where it goes from there, Lofty.
Yes, indeed. Let us see where it goes from there. Paula, thank you very much indeed. That is a very powerful line that you ended on here. Let's see where it goes from here, because we know the type of justice that, you know, we are accustomed to in Dominica, and your bet is as good as mine. Brother Allen, let us now pull you into the conversation as we get going here. Your thoughts, your initial thoughts, sir, on what transpired on or about the 1st of December 2023, is very, very horrific murder of two people in Dominica, foreigners at that, investors at that.
Well, Lofty, I, as you know, was in Dominica up until December of 2021. And for some time, I worked with Coca-Cola for a short while, doing deliveries down to, well, all over the island, really. But I believe I was in the Soufriere and Scotshead area, if I remember correctly, twice every week. And I never met these people personally, but I did see them a few times going by, and the people in the community always spoke very highly of them. Now, this incident is extremely unfortunate, and I think we only now, upon reflection, and after the events have taken place, we have gotten a better understanding as to who these persons really were and how influential they were on the world stage. As they say, you know, we had no idea who we had in our midst, and the quality of personalities and the influence that they actually could wield. I listened to a few of the persons who were attending the vigil on Thursday, I believe. Last week, was it? And I was quite shocked at the number of young women in particular who spoke of their sadness and their grief, but more importantly, spoke of the contribution that these great people made to their lives personally, and from very young ages. Many of them said that they had met them when they were roughly 12, 10, 13, 14 years old, and through apparently youth groups that have been set up by, I believe, the lady Dominique. And these youth groups had a mission basically to not only educate them in terms of how blessed they were in terms of natural resources, but also to educate them on how to maintain those resources, to value them, and also that financially they were very supportive in terms of ensuring that these young people got opportunities to not only participate in sports like aqua sports and so on, but also had the opportunity to be trained in activities such as diving, and that many of them had become dive masters. People were very well trained and able to assist others, and possibly even train others to become divers themselves. So it became very obvious how much they contributed to not only the communities and the infrastructure in the communities, but also to the lives of these young people in helping to form them and give them opportunities to have better lives and life experiences. So it's extremely sad that this would have happened, and that there were signs that this could be the result, and these signs were ignored by those who could have brought about significant changes to the direction of this particular event.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's with real sadness that I look back on this, and we Dominicans are I believe known to always want foreigners to have a really special time in our country and to enjoy and to love our country as much as we do. And so this is really a sad time. Very.
Yes, indeed. Very, very sad indeed, Brother Aline, indeed. Paula ended on a note where she said, let us see where justice goes in that matter. And I took note where you basically said, in terms of, these people, you really, really and truly, Brother Aline, said that the writings were all on the wall. And these deaths could have been prevented, that is, if the authorities in Dominica, and I'm speaking specifically now to our police in Dominica, if they had moved in and basically did what they had to do at the time they had to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been looking through the details that we have from one of the court cases in relation to the injunctions that was sought by Daniel in order to attempt to prevent Jonathan from blocking the roads and preventing access to his property. And it's pretty obvious that this whole thing, I mean, I'm quite amazed that in the court documents, the judge in her submissions actually makes the point that these incidents were going on and this conflict was going on for 4 to 5 years.
Yes, indeed.
And yet our police chief is saying that in those 4 to 5 years, despite the obvious seriousness of this conflict, that only 2 reports were made. I would say the balance of probability would say, you know, that only if what he's saying has any substance to it, balance of probability is that, you know, only 2 reports were recorded.
True.
But many reports must have been made, because I don't think people would just simply ignore the fact that that, you know, they were being stopped by, particularly by persons who were not Dominican. If it was a local person, there would have been probably more physical contact and more conflict, because it's a Dominican like yourself. But if you're a Dominican and you're in your own land, and you have a foreigner, you know, treating you in the way that he seemed to be treating others, you would naturally go and make a complaint. So it's kind of surprising that the police chief would say that there were only 2 reports in 4.5 and 5 years.
And Bernard, just to add to your point, sir, not just reports were made based on factual information that I'm getting by Mr. Daniel and his partner, the deceased now. A number of other reports were made, read that same incident, read that road where it is said that Jonathan blocked over and over again and prevented persons from passing. Persons of the communities as well, of Soufriere and Scott said, made reports as well to the police, whereby they said that Jonathan and whoever were assigned by him were basically preventing them from exercising their rights that is enshrined in the Constitution in Dominica, by preventing them from traversing a public road. And so to hear the commissioner of police say there's only 2 reports that were made, I want to agree with you, Brother Allen, is that 2 reports will maybe recorded by them, but certainly cannot be 2 reports that were made. And I just want to piggyback on a point that one of our persons are listening, then I was saying or suggesting, in terms of a situation like that occurred, Allen and Paula. We know the man who sits in the chair of Prime Minister, that is Roosevelt Skerrit. This brother speaks on everything and anything. And up till now,
Never speak on it.
up till now, not a drumbeat in terms of any public statements made by Roosevelt Skerrit. Paula, your take. Bernard Allen, your take.
Lofty, this is the reason why I said earlier, this what poses as a government, and the persons who are in charge, the law. If something like that has been happening for so long, because like I said before, I saw one lady who made her comments on Facebook, and she said she was a visitor here in Dominica, someplace in Scottsdale, and she decided to go up there to visit. And what happened? All the other persons in the community of Soufriere and Scottsdale have been complaining. You never heard Roosevelt, neither Blackmore or the Commissioner of Police, intervene. No, these people have lost their lives. And this has been over what? Over 3 weeks now? And like you rightly said, Roosevelt speaks on everything that happens in Dominica. And everybody knows If you go to the Minister of Education, Roosevelt have to speak on this. You go to the Minister of Tourism, he has to speak on this. Go to the Minister of Health, he has to speak on this. This man speaks on every single thing. So he holds the ministry for all the other ministers. I don't know if you all can recall a few years ago, he said, when Roosevelt, as the leader of the country, when the people are not doing what they have to do, come to him. Now, in a situation like that, where people came to Dominica to invest, and they found Dominica was a safe place, and these things was happening. From the get-go, something should have been done. And Roosevelt, we should have heard from you. Because where lives are threatened, and you are telling me, the man who holds the seat as the prime minister, you have not said a word. And now these people have lost their lives. You still haven't said anything. And this is the reason why. What kind of impression that you, as the man who saves the Prime Minister of Dominica, what kind of impression are you creating? Many persons who would have wanted to come to Dominica to invest, they will not want to come here unless if they are criminals, just like Jonathan, and know they will commit their crimes and they will get away. So you, Mr. Roosevelt, Blackmore, and the Commissioner of Police, Dominicans at home and abroad, are glued to hear what you all have to say. Lofty, listen to something that happened about a week ago. I was working, and one lady came up to me, and she said, you know, I'm so-and-so, I'm from wherever, and it was she and her husband. And she said, we heard about 2 Canadians that was murdered here in Dominica. And I said, really? I said, I didn't hear about that. And remember, I was trying, at least in a way, to protect these people because they were visiting. And then eventually, I listened to her for a while. And then I said, why did you hear about that? And she said, we read it on the news and it is all over the internet.
Yes, Paula, we lost you there for a little while, but you're back on.
Yes, because I'm not sure what's happening here. So she said,
all right, folks, we apologize on Paula's behalf. We're having some technical issue here with Paula delivery tonight. So let us hope that that thing rectifies itself, whatever the technical issue is. And so we will try to get Paula back into the conversation pretty soon. But Brother Allen, as we continue on here, whilst Paula try to get back in, your take based on the same question that I asked Paula, your perspective on Roosevelt's carrying, not a drumbeat, not a word as yet from this brother since the 1st of December, today being the 17th.
Well, Lofty, you know, you might be surprised if I say it, but I believe that is characteristic of the gentleman. I think that the Prime Minister, some people listen to his utterances and do not really process them. But you have to, with this gentleman, you have to process his utterances and you have to analyze his behavior. I don't know if you've noticed that when very important matters are before Parliament, matters that may be contentious to us as Dominicans in terms of the impacts on our future, he's absent on many occasions. So the other parliamentarians shoulder the responsibility of voting on these matters and voting them into law, and the top man, the prime minister, is absent. And so, whenever issues are contentious, difficult to face, or may have negative consequences for him and his image, whenever he can dodge them, he will. When he can't dodge them, and he has to face them head on, particularly if they are put to him in an unexpected fashion, he ends up in situations such as the one that he faced in Trinidad, where he was referred to as a star boy. So I'm not surprised that this is happening. What really surprises me, though, is that as I said earlier, this issue went on for 4 or 5 years, according to the court records, and the parliamentary representative who's been power rep for that length of time, and I believe has been Minister of Tourism probably for that length of time, did not apparently ensure that this man of such high caliber, somebody who had invested so much financially and otherwise in Dominica and its people as well, did not get the protection that he absolutely deserved, not only under the law as a Dominican, but just as a person and as an investor at the level at which he invested. Because this issue that caused his death and the death of his partner is really something that should have been very simple to resolve. Because as I went through the legal document, it became quite clear that the gentleman, the accused, had bought a piece of property after Daniel had bought his piece of property. And so Daniel, before the accused, Jonathan, came to Dominica and invested, was already using that road as an access to his property, as many other people did, including farmers from the Soufriere and Scotshead area. And when Jonathan bought his property, he got a certificate of title, which placed the road somewhere in between one part of his property and the other part of his property. So he decided to buy a piece of property that was in 2 parts with a public road in the middle. He decided that. And so to, after the fact, then decide that he did not want people to utilize that road, which was a number of times mentioned in that document as a public road. It was established as a public road. To attempt to do that after he had invested in the property could not have been right. And so this dispute should not have been going on for 4 and 5 years. And the court, in my view, should have dealt with it very quickly and gotten it out of the way. Now, let's get back to the fact that the Prime Minister has not commented yet on this. This is something that will raise eyebrows amongst the persons who wish to invest in Dominica, because they will look at this particular incident and think, well, why is it that someone would move to Dominica, multimillionaire, spend millions of dollars on building a fabulous hotel in the south of your island, and you allow this sort of thing to go on, and the result is his passing. And even at that point, you do not even express regret or condolences or communicate in some way how sad you are as the leader of the country that this has happened, and so it will have a massive negative effect. But I think most importantly, the people of the community need to take note of these realities.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Brother Allen, for your forthright comment in terms of the perspective of Roosevelt not speaking on the matter just yet. Brother Allen, you made a very fundamental point in terms of trying to clarify up certain issues here. I am reading now from the court document on section 11, that document that emanated out of the court, where Mr. Daniel and Jonathan, they were in court for some time in 2018, trying to get this whole impasse, between them settled. And you made a point in terms of who bought property first and who bought property next. Section 11 of that court document reads, and folks, please take note, because that is crucial, it is critical. And I think Brother Allen, kind of ironed it out nicely a while ago in terms of understanding, putting it into context. Section 11 of that document says the access to the claimant's property, and the claimant here is Mr. Daniel. Access to the claimant's property is via the Mont Rouge public road, which runs from Soufriere to Bois Côtelette. The public road runs through the property registered to the defendants, and now the defendants, people, at least one of them is Jonathan and the other being his property. So it says the public road, that was and still is in contention between these two people, says here, the public road, that road runs through the property registered to the defendants. So meaning registered to Mr. Jonathan, as is shown on the certificate of title issued to the first named defendant. And so when Bernard said a while ago that it was Daniel who bought property first in that area, Jonathan came after to buy property, knowing fully well that Mont Rouge public road was the access to get to Daniel's property. Then Jonathan himself, I am saying tonight, based on the revelation of Aline tonight, that he was at fault. Buying a property and there's a public road running right through that property, knowing fully well that there is another or other properties above, and that is the only access route to get to the properties above you. So Jonathan had full responsibility to know that whatever he was getting himself involved with in terms of purchasing of that property, that may have gotten him in some hot water, as we see playing out now. And also, in addition to that as well, the people, and when I say the people, the state that sold that property to Jonathan, whoever did the measurements or whoever did whatever they had to do in terms of details, somebody dropped the ball and they did not take that into consideration, whereby a public road could now be part and parcel of Jonathan's property. And to me, that is why the topic is so labeled tonight: the death of Dominic, the death of Mr. Laglaw, and the state of Dominica.
Well, Lofty, let's look at it this way. First of all, he made the decision to buy the property as he bought it, with a public road passing through the middle. As you have clearly articulated and reinforced, this road was a public road for years, many years before he came and bought these two plots, two sections, one either side. Okay. Now, in the court documents, it's pointed out that he created an alternative route around his property, around the edges of his property, presumably, And he was instructing members of staff and persons who were visiting the hotel above him and so on to utilize that alternative route. So the court says that this matter is actually meant to resolve this issue as to whether or not an individual, after buying property with a public road running through it, has the right to create an alternative route and demand that people utilize that alternative route and not use what is the public road, because the public road is effectively government property. It is to be maintained by government for the benefit of the public. So if you buy a piece of land with the public road going through it, and then you decide to cut off the public road to public access because it's supposedly going through the middle of your property, and you provide an alternative route, then effectively you are taking the public road as part of your property. You haven't paid for that section of land, but you are cutting it off and now making it part of the middle of your property. So let us say in his case, the full size of his property, I believe, was 52.6 acres or something like that. If you were to add the public road to that, would you end up, I mean, let's say, for example, you add the public road to that 52 acres, and you end up with 60 acres or 62 acres in totality. You have not paid for the extra amount. And not only that, if you were to do that, you would presumably have to compensate the state for the loss of the public road. So you not only would you have to pay for the land itself, but you'd have to compensate the state for the loss of that public access road. And so, in my view, it was unreasonable for the gentleman to make such demands and to provide the alternative. But in providing the alternative now, one of the reasons why I began commenting on this is because Daniel himself, through this case, was requesting of the court that it give an order to provide him with the right to access the defendant's land, Jonathan's land, in order to assess with an engineer that he would pay for the viability and the quality and the strength of this alternative route, with a view presumably of utilizing it if he felt that it was actually a viable route. And so in my view, he was willing to not only spend his own money to get an engineer to check it and so on, but he was willing to compromise if he felt that this alternative route was in fact viable. He was willing to utilize it in order to ease up the situation of conflict between himself and Jonathan. But the question is, should that be his responsibility? Should he have to pay an engineer to go onto Jonathan's land and make that sort of assessment? That, in my view, is not his responsibility. The road being a public road is property of the government. The planning has a responsibility as to establishing the fact that, yes, this road is a public road, and planning and the government should have been able to say simply, this is a public road, it's an established public road, and you have no right to block it, period. End of story. They should not have had to go to court in order for the courts to drag it on for the length of time that they have. And also, I am not even sure that, because at the end of this particular document, it says that the court is allowing the injunction until such time that there is closure of the actual case of conflict. So after this particular ruling in relation to the injunction, the actual trial should have taken place. Has it ever taken place? Because this ruling was in 2018.
True.
Has this trial ever taken place in order to establish the rights of one over the other? I don't think it has. So that's another thing we need to look into.
My brother, thank you very, very much indeed, folks. Again, we apologize for Paula basically going off grid here, as it were. And so we will continue, but Paula have basically fallen on the grid as to why that technical issue. We don't know at this time. So Paula, if you can, please try getting back in. That would be very, very good indeed. But if not, then we apologize on your behalf. All right. But thank you, Paula, for showing up tonight, making that all-important sacrifice. Folks, it is 7 o'clock, and that is where we normally, usually, always take that first break. And so now is the time if you just want to take an ease at this time. I know you guys are riveted to your seat, but so that is the time to take that break and do come back for the last leg, the second leg of the conversation indeed. Let's do this one from Brother Nasio Fontaine talking about justice.
The people need justice, and everybody needs some justice, and we got to have justice. Oh, every people need some justice. Lord, justice. Down in the ghetto we need justice, and we got to have justice. See all the people cry for justice. Yeah.
See all the people cry for justice indeed, says Nasir in song.
Got to go. We got to give justice.
Folks, the numbers to call into the program after that break, they are 245-2396. They are on your screen as we speak.
So think of the past song.
Or 615-9470.
We got to have.
These are the two numbers to get your voice into the conversation tonight.
Justice. Come on and give the people justice. Lord, so we got to have justice. By any means there must be justice. Lord.
And the number of you folks who have been commenting so far, we will get to some of your comments in just a bit as well, huh?
Justice. Lord, yeah. Justice. I know the people need some justice. Lord, yeah. Let justice flow. We're gonna fight to make it so. Let justice be.
And yes, folks, in the second hour of the program,
Come on, let the justice strong.
we're gonna tie the government of Dominica.
I wanna let you know.
Yes, you heard me right.
Peace. Without justice on it.
We're gonna tie the government of Dominica to that horrendous crime that took place on the 1st of December in the south of Dominica.
Yeah. And righteousness as a mighty stream. Justice for one and justice for all.
So please stay tuned for that and more.
Much of class and too many wars. So we got to act. We got to act. Some justice. So I'ma say, let justice run down as a river. Lord, Justice for one and justice for all. Too much division, too much old class, and too many wars. Yeah, justice. Every nation needs some justice, and we got to have justice. And every people needs some justice, Lord. Justice.
Does the government silence mean that they are complicit in that crime?
Yeah, justice. See all the people cry for justice, Lord, Lord.
All right, Brother Nasu, thank you very much indeed. Folks, it is 5 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock, and yes, we are back with our live panel here. Those of you are joining in late, Brother Bernard Aline, patriarch Dominican, living out of Dominica at this time, somewhere in the cold. He's our special invited guest tonight. I can see Paula Celestin is back, and that is very good. Paula, are you back with us in truth and indeed? Let me hear you.
Yes, Lofty. For whatever reason, the phone just shut down. And when I tried to put it on, it said that the app is downloading. So I'm happy that I am back. I know I have missed a lot there.
Yes.
Because it's been a while, you know.
Yes, indeed. Yes. All right, Paula, thank you for having you back. Nonetheless, we are now into the second leg of the program. And that is where, Paula, we are going to we are going to tie the government, the entire government of Dominica now, to that horrendous crime that happened in the south of Dominica, where two investors in Dominica, Canadian nationals that is, they lost their lives in very, very horrendous ways. And since that crime occurred where two persons were brutally murdered, they were shot, it is said, acid was poured on their bodies, and then their vehicle were burnt. And in trying to cover up that crime, their vehicle, it is said, the alleged perpetrators, the two who are sitting in prison now, Jonathan and his accomplice, it is said, they tried their best to throw over a cliff, adding up to 800 to 1,000 feet plus, I'm being told, over that cliff in order to try to conceal that crime. And since then, the only minister of government we have heard is the Minister of Tourism, that is the Palarep for the area, that is none other than Dennis Charles. Apart from that, we have not heard any other minister. The National Security Minister came, that is his portfolio. And if he did not speak, well, that would be even more damning. But the government itself, the bunch of people who are responsible for the protection of Dominicans, and these people who were murdered were Dominicans, they had their passports. And so the entire regime, they have been silent. Their silence have been deafening so far. And by their silence, we are saying that there's much more in the mortar than the pestle. And so as that investigation continues, especially from the international aspect of things, we in Dominica will be knowing much more of just how the government of Dominica, what they did or what they did not do in preventing these two people from losing their lives very, very brutally. We have some comments to attend to, but Paula, you were off for some time. What would you want to say in terms of as we are moving on here, folks? And remember the numbers to call: 245-2396 or 615-9470. Yes, Paula, your take.
Yes, Lofty. Let me just quite quick, because you have moved from where we were into the second segment. But let me just quite quick the point that I was making. When this lady, started speaking about she heard what happened here, and I said to her, it's like, where you read about that? Where you heard about that? And she said, it's all over the internet. And she said, I'm Canadian. And it's like, then I said, oh, yeah, I heard that. Because I didn't just wanted to say, okay, look what that transpired. Because some people have a way of saying, you spread the bad message out there. And I did not want to be the person who actually say just directly to the people, yes, this transpired. So I'm saying when we believe that the wider world out there is not catching up on what is happening here in Dominica. They are. No, these people who lost their lives, Lofty, in as much as the people who pose is as the government, the Prime Minister have not spoken, he have not said anything. If people were in doubt, and you would have said, okay, maybe he doesn't support what happened, but in as much as you remain silent, it makes it look like you are in total favor of these criminals. And I'm saying that to say, it had already taken a bad turn. It have already taken a bad turn because these people in no form or shape, they should have lost their lives. I look at it as a dispute between two persons who came to Dominica. They are not citizens by birth, but these both people, they are investors. And if you are giving priority to one, it makes it look to the other one that you're not concerned about them. And I believe this is something that should have settled a very long time ago. Because even when you just said that about the two reports, and people from the community said about the number of occasions that these people reported that even the villagers themselves, and like everything on Facebook, I mean, something should have been done. This should not have gone that far. That this man who came to Dominica, and I believe this man did what he did because he knows where he stands. Because, Lofty, and the visitors, if you know for a fact you're going to commit a crime and you believe you're going to get away because you support this regime, then nothing is going to stop you. And that's how I look at it. Jonathan continued to abuse the people, he continued to harass the people, and he knows at some point, when he do what he do, he believes that he's going to get away. But there is a God. The only thing that really God didn't do, and maybe some people might challenge me on that the people's lives should not have been taken from them. But look at the other part of it. If these people had gone down into the precipice, nobody would have known what happened to them. Because these people would have caught on fire, and these people would have consumed, and there would have been, it would have just been left there like that.
And Paula, just to add, when I looked into my crystal ball, I am saying an innocent Dominican or innocent Dominicans maybe would have been in police custody, getting beatings after beatings, and maybe even implicate themselves in a murder or murders that they did not commit. And that, to me, Paula, it is very sad indeed. If their plan had went as planned.
Yes. And this was calculated. And even as we know in the law, when plans are calculated and things like that happen, what the penalty is like. And any right-thinking Dominicans, with what has happened there to the people, if we continue to have people like Jonathan and people who think like him continue to come to Dominica, and we call them investors, and they have our passports, and we refuse to do what we are supposed to do with them, Dominica, God forbid. And this is just a clear lesson that for Dominicans who continue to support the wrongdoing, and Dominicans who believe that Jonathan had more right in Dominica than these people that he took their lives away from them, we need to think again.
Yes, indeed. We need to think again. Bernard, just before we go to some of the questions or comments on the live feed, what would you say, Bernard, in terms of my take? I'm just asking you for your perspective, where I am suggesting that the entire DLP regime, they are complicit in one way, shape, or form as it pertains to that type of murder where two people lost their lives.
Right. Well, Lofty, let me put it this way. As the son of a very prominent lawyer, an ex-politician and minister of government, I have a responsibility, and a judge at that. I have a responsibility to be very careful about allegations, accusations, etc. I get knocked sometimes by, knocked back into sense by the many in my family who are legal minds, because I am a very emotional beast, if you want to put it that way. And I can, because of my emotion, I can go in the wrong direction because I follow my emotion. And I'm constantly reminded that, law is about facts and evidence, and guilt has to be proven. However, I'll put it this way. Recently, I don't remember who it was who made reference to collective responsibility. I believe it was my dear friend Sean Douglas who fell victim to this notion of supposed collective responsibility and was accused of going out of line instead of respecting that principle of collective responsibility on the part of the opposition. And the Prime Minister, I believe, supported the persons who unceremoniously and unfairly removed him from his position as a senator. There's a collective responsibility that the government has to take up. And I've said it many times over the last years that I have commented on what's happening in Dominica. In that the PAL reps, the persons who are supposed to represent the interests of the people and the nation, and instead are ensuring that they secure their pockets and their interests over and above that of the nation, should be held collectively responsible for the demise of our nation and its democracy. And this is what our people need to ensure happens, that their PAL reps and their ex-PAL reps as well, those who were unceremoniously removed by the Prime Minister at the last sham election, where he said on the platform that they were lazy and they were all sorts of things, while they laughed in the background. And after replacing them with young and generally inexperienced people, he then brought them back in as ministers, many of them. They need to, in this case, take collective responsibility for not having pointed out that this man of such stature, this Dominican, not by birth, but by CBI acquisition of his citizenship, but somebody who certainly made multitudes of contributions, more than most of us Dominicans ever have, in terms of development of particularly the villages around which he lived, Soufriere, Scotshead, and Gallio, out of his own pocket. They had a responsibility to recognize that this issue that was going on between himself and another foreign national with Dominican citizenship, who got his citizenship through the CBI program under their watch, that this did not escalate and become an issue that got out of hand and resulted in the present day reality that we face. And so now that they have, now that we have no option but to face this reality, they now have a collective responsibility to not only comment and publicly state their, condolences and their sympathy for the family and the loss of their loved ones. But they also have a responsibility now as a government and as representatives of the nation to ensure that justice is served. They have that responsibility. And so their eyes should be on the police and the police operation just as much as ours is. And they should ensure that if they do not have the decision-making responsibility, that those who do have it within their government exercise it in the interest of the people, in the interest of the state, and in the interest of justice for the deceased. Okay, so the responsibility, for example, of bringing in the Canadian Mounted Police or the FBI or whoever else can assist, that lies with them, because normally they will say to you, these entities cannot enter your country and operate unless they get an invitation from the government. So the government has that responsibility now to ensure that the investigation gets all the resources that it needs to ensure that the right result comes of this. And a perfect example of a failure in that regard was that which happened when we lost this lovely child of 12 years old in the Warner area. And the police allowed the crime scene and the area to be flooded with people, and many of them threatening to go out there and to find the accused and to kill him, to injure him, to hurt him in the most brutal of ways, without evidence that established fact in relation to him being the person responsible. And that was encouraged in many ways by the police. And then what happened was they requested the help of the French authorities. They came down with their dogs and with other equipment. And when they got to Dominica, my understanding is that they found so many people having trampled the crime scene that they said, well, there's nothing we can do. And they turned around and left.
Yeah.
Because it was all contaminated. So this responsibility lies, as well as that one, in the case of Kanisha, on the shoulders of this government. And if they haven't learned the lessons from the Kanisha incident, and they allow this one to slip, well, they will be judged accordingly.
Yeah. 22 minutes past the good old hour of 7 o'clock, folks. We are coming to your comments in just a while. Brother Bernard, thank you very much for your professional spin in terms of you tagging the government the horrendous crimes that occurred in the south of Dominica. Bernard, in terms of just polishing up that point that you made, whereby I am saying, as a Dominican living in Dominica, having seen things done in Dominica over a number of times that have not gone right, justice. Bernard, do you know that as we speak, the name of Mr. Jonathan Lira and his company, Bois Cotlet, it is still, as we speak, as we are having that discuss, on the government's website, Ready CBI program as an agent? Do you know that, Bernard? Are you aware of that?
I wasn't aware of that. But if that is the case, then we can only assume from that he is still in fact an agent and can still act on behalf of our government and our people.
Right.
And
so
that would be a travesty.
Right. So here it is, Bernard. That is the point I need Dominicans now to get. in terms of driving home that point where I am pegging, I am pinning, I am tagging the government, the entire regime with the unwanted deaths of these two people. How could you have a man, Bernard, Paula, and the listening public sitting in prison as we speak, awaiting a court date, re-allegations of not just a crime, but a very horrendous crime at that? And his name, his business name is still on your government's website as a person that can still peddle, push, sell our passports. And I am saying, if that is not enough evidence to suggest that the government is part and parcel of the problem, then I don't know what is. Bernard, Paula, the listening public, the police department, which is an organ of the state of Dominica, that state is being run by the Dominica Labour Party. The police failed in their duty. They basically abdicated their responsibility towards protection of these two people. Hence, we are having that discussion today. So by not acting swift enough, by not taking the necessary actions, I am prepared to peg the entire regime through the non-active action of the police to that horrendous crime. Brother Bernard and Paula and the listening public, the Ministry of Lands and Surveys, the common denominator in terms of the problem that ensued between these two people was this Montrouge Road, this public road. How could the Ministry of Land and Surveys sit there, know that thing was going on, and not step in as the ministry now where state property is concerned and try to resolve that matter? In addition, you have the Minister/Ministry of Tourism. Foreigners to our shores need that level of protection, that level of security when they come to our shores to spend and enjoy themselves. And what did the Ministry of Tourism did? Very, very little. At least we heard some hypocritical tears or some mournings or some moanings of Dennis Charles. But the horse has already left the stable and gone. These two people, they were brutally cut down, Dennis. How many communicators did you have on your desk as it pertains to these people in terms of their the fracas between these two people? How many communiques that you did not respond to? I am asking you that question directly, Dennis Charles, PAL rep for the area/Minister of Tourism. What did your ministry do to help protect Mr. Daniel and his partner? What? Just what? Because you guys were aware of that situation, as the court document states. That impasse is from 2018, around that time. 5 years plus. 5 years plus. And so to me, the only way that this government can be absolved, they can remove themselves from these crimes, from a passport seller, it is alleged for now, it is by seeking, as Blackmore said, some international expertise to come into Dominica, because we don't have the capacity. We don't. So let us not pussyfoot around that point. We don't. If someone burglarizes your house now, Paula, the police cannot help you in Dominica. Straight up. And so the only way that the government can be absolved from these crimes is by seeking / getting, making contact, or allowing international experts to come into Dominica and help solve these crimes. Unless and until they can do that, Loftus-Durand is saying the entire regime, they are complicit, and the people of Dominica need to basically tell them it is time to go. I can't say it any better.
Lofty, there's a number of persons that have to be blamed for this crime. What poses as the government? The head of the police first, the Minister of Tourism. Because these people, like you rightly said, Dennis Charles is the Minister of Tourism, and these people were in her constituency. So, after this have happened, the horse have left the stable. Dennis Charles is now speaking. The Commissioner of Police, 2 reports have been recorded, but a number of reports have been made. The man who sits in the chair as the Prime Minister, he intervenes in every single thing in the country. He should have intervened. The land and survey, it's another one. Because if a property belongs to the state, why didn't they set it right with this man to let him know that the property belongs to the state if he forgot, and that the people had just as much right as him? For persons to be complaining about this for so long, and it had to get to that stage. Now, you have visitors coming here, and some of them may come for just a day, and they themselves, they will feel threatened. Because when they come here, maybe they walk the streets, they go on a tour, they find themselves astray, maybe somewhere where not many people could really see them and something happen. These people are not going to feel safe. Because when you have to be reading about what happened in Dominica here, and not only that, let me get to this point before I forget. There was this murder in Portsmouth a few years ago of this young lady, Marilyn McLawrence. And this matter, after a number of years being in the court, this matter had to be eventually done away with because there was not enough evidence by the police. And the police officers and them, some of them, they have a way of doing things. Because if there is not enough evidence to prove that Jonathan and the other person who is now at the state prison really committed the offense, these folks can get away, and these people, it's like, what happens? So I believe if what poses as the government decided not to give permission to the people who can do the investigation, it's not talking about we have a police force here and you believe that they can do the right thing. This is way past the point of what I'm now speaking about. You bring in the experts, you can have our police officers working with them if you care to, but you cannot sweep this one under the carpet. Because from 2009, there's a lot that have been said about this, which is in government, which call themselves a government. And this one should not allow Roosevelt and his ministers and the other persons in authority who are in charge to get away with it. Because if a man holds a Dominica passport and he came here to invest, and he's been treating the other people like he owned this country, and the government didn't see it fit to do something with this man knew exactly where he stands. This is the reason why this which poses as a government, you will have to do something about it. Because the world is looking and the world is listening to what has happened to these people here in Dominica. Something has to be done.
Yes, indeed. Bernard, before we take some comments here, any thoughts from you? We go into the live feed in just a bit.
Lofty, let's be very clear. For the record, according to the court records that you and I have referenced this evening, the judge stated back in 2018 that this matter had been ongoing for 4 to 5 years. That was in 2018. We're now at the end of 2023, 5 years later. So this matter actually has been ongoing for a total of somewhere in the region of 10 years. Now, are we going to say that the Minister of Tourism, who is a PAL rep of the area, was unaware for that full 10-year period or however long she's been serving as MP of what is happening within her community? She had to be aware. The people would have been discussing certain things. As the person representing them, she must be hearing of things going on and so on. So she should have been aware if she was not aware, right? But also, when you have persons of that caliber who have the financial clout, the influence, the ability to invest almost at will, especially in small island states like Dominica and other islands in the Caribbean, the government tends to get very close to them as best as they can, because they can get assistance from them, they can seek assistance from them. Many times when they get assistance, they can have it appear that it is because of their actions and their influence. Over the years, I've listened a lot to Antigua Radio, for example. And your friend, Mr. Chucksy, was very close to the Antigua government for some time, until it was found that the Indian government wanted him for certain actions in India, and they attempted to distance themselves from him. Mr. Monfared was the same thing, very close to the Dominica government. Now, in this case, my understanding is that Daniel tried his best to remain free of political affiliation, and tried his best to act, assisting persons and assisting the community in a very neutral way. But just an observation, after Hurricane Maria, it is said that he decided to use his own money and through his organization to invest in the rebuild of the Sufria primary school, I believe it was. And there is an allegation that the government of Dominica wished for him to donate those funds to them in order that they could do the job themselves. And the gentleman said, no, I'll do it through my organization. I will ensure that there's accountability and that we get the best value for money. Since I am the one spending the money, I have the freedom to make that decision and to supervise the job myself, paraphrasing his words. So maybe at that point, remember, Maria was 2017. This judgment within the court system was 2018 after Maria. Maybe his decision to to manage his own funds and to do the job himself on that school created some sort of friction between himself and the government of the day. And that could quite easily influence their actions or lack thereof in terms of ensuring that the gentleman is treated in the way that he deserved to be treated as a Dominican. And so I think we need to take that into consideration. He spent, from what I understand, his own money to build a jetty down at Scott's Head that the Scott's Head fishermen would be able to benefit from. I understand his influence was exercised in order to get one in Soufriere that was funded by one of the international organizations. And then he spent his own money on the school. But the fact that the government was unable to take credit for some of those things based on his own decisions may very well have influenced their actions with regard to him and his situation.
Yeah, indeed.
In this regard, yeah.
Yeah. All right, folks, it is 20 minutes to 8 o'clock. In 20 minutes time, we have to clear space. Very interesting conversation so far with Brother Bernard Aline and Paula Celestine this evening. Just before we end tonight's program, I'm getting some initial results. The Delegates Conference of the United Workers' Party held in Marigot this evening. So before we end, I will tell you what my wires they are picking up at this time in terms of the results this evening. All right, so please stay tuned later just before we end. All right, but let us go now to some questions here or some comments on the live feed. TC Gordon is writing here, the investigation in the death of Mr. Daniel, and his partner requires forensics experts in positively identifying the deceased, processing fingerprints, if any, identifying and processing any chemicals and any chemicals that may have been used to dispose of the bodies and any other physical evidence that may be found in the home of the accused or elsewhere. Let me go to another comment here. Thank you very much, TC Gordon, for your comment here. Very, very deep indeed. Marceline Edwards writes, Langlaw did not want to associate himself with those rogues, period. I guess that is based on the comment Brother Allen just made. We also have one coming in from Gerald Vital. Gerald Vital writes, all the ministers of government and the officially elected opposition should have stood up against the gruesome killing of Daniel and his wife. They are all silent, like some conspiracy. I will say that the only way to dismantle this government is to place pressure on every government institution and minister, forcing them to resign by demanding honest and accountable governance. That is the viewpoint of Gerald Vital. Larry Lloyd, writes here, you heard no law, no constitution matters in Dominica. Lincoln James is saying here, very well said, Paula. There was a question, I think, posed by Tuau Williams earlier, asking, I cannot see it now, but if memory serves me right, she was asking Bernard and Paula whether the estate that it's situated where Bois Cotlet is at now, whether that estate was let me see if I could get back to that question. Yeah, by okay, that question, I'll look for that. But basically, she was asking in a nutshell whether that estate was owned by our, it was a slave plantation. Can you speak to that, Bernard?
Well, yes, in the court documents, it's actually stated that this road, this contentious road, public road, was actually a road built to join the village of Soufriere with the estate of Colette. Now, I've never been up there. I've heard a lot about it, but I've never been up there. But the way in which this was stated in the court documents suggests that the road was built in order to allow access to the estate, the Colette estate. And so, being a public road, it would also give access, provide access to local villagers and anybody who owned land along the edges of the road, just like a feeder road is, right? My understanding as well from the descriptions is that Danielle may have purchased a significantly larger portion of land than Jonathan. Danielle had something like 200 acres. 200 acres
plus. Yes.
However, the 200 acres, from my understanding, was not all Bois-Colette, right? There was a portion of it that was from that estate, and the rest of the land was from possibly other estates, or just land outside of that actual official estate. There's also reference to the fact that the land that Jonathan owned or owns has on it relics of the slave period, very apparently well preserved buildings from that time period that would have been used by the owners of the estate for different reasons in relation to operation of the estate. And that one of the things that Jonathan used as his argument for persons not being allowed to use a public road was that the movement of heavy traffic, in particular traffic that would be, from my understanding, carrying materials to the hotel being built by Danielle, was causing, in his submissions, damage to these old buildings. And so in order to try to protect the old buildings from damage, from movement of traffic, he wished to stop people from using that road and provided instead the alternative that goes around his land in a different direction where that traffic would not. So that was why Danielle made the attempt to get the court to approve him bringing engineers of his choosing onto the alternative route to ensure that that alternative route could in fact take the heavy traffic as the public road could, in order for him to continue his work on his hotel.
Yeah. Thank you very much for bringing a little more clarity to that matter. Paula, anytime you can feel free to jump in, but we're on the live feed aspect now, taking in the comments there, all right? Adelaide Paul writes, isn't or wasn't the Attorney General supposed to speak? That's a question she's asking. Wasn't that an issue that warranted his voice? He speaks on other politically related issues, but not on such a horrible event that puts the entire country in a negative light. That is what Ms. Paul is basically punching at us here. Cecilia Bedminister says here, but seriously, what really happened to Dominicans now? A lot of question marks. Cecilia, you need to tell me as well. She says here, I'm baffled. My thoughts are so impure right now. Didi Easter writes, Dominica is a failed state run by a criminal enterprise. Don't know when our people will wake up and remove this corrupt regime. Dory Dreiger writes, Dominicans must holistically vent their disgust regarding the way that the administration has handled the case thus far. Total failure, in my humble opinion. Marcelin Edwards come back and write here, not even condolences Skerritt conveyed to the family. It speaks a volume to the injustices he was aware of in the harassment by Jonathan that they all allowed. Marley Austria writes, Kian was an innocent man. They need to pick up the pastor. Rosie Nice writes here, the French need to come back and go to the Coulibaly area to do a search. I guess you're talking about really missing young lady named Marion from the French quarters. Joseph Parilla writes, Paula, you are on the ball indeed. Larry Lloyd says here, up to a day like today, they cannot find the French woman who gone missing. Either the police in Dominica is a waste of time. Twal Williams, right? Are you sure they're sitting in Stock Farm? She's asking that all important question. Well, Mrs. Williams, based on my last word with my intel, they should be up there. If they're not, then you may have other sources that I don't. Let me see. Twal William writes again, why are the people of Soufriere being so quiet on this? Why? She's asking. Being told from the grapevine that there's a special something that may happen sometime this week. So keep your eyes and ears glued to that constituency. Any more comments? Rosie Nice writes, we need to call on anyone who made reports to the police about Jonathan. We need to get a count on where was the incident or the harassment reported. Didi Easter writes here, do we have any evidence that Jonathan obtained citizenship of Bois Cotlet legally? That is a very important question, Didi Easter, that some investigations need to go into that as well. Brother Ezra Winston is writing here, how ironic. He wants to solve a land dispute between Venezuela and Guyana, and right here in his backyard, he is numb. Oja, help us, he says, he refused to solve a simple dispute. And the list goes on and on here in terms of commenting here. But guys, it is what, 8 minutes to the hour of 8 o'clock. And so we have now to start to, sort of bring the conversation home. Paula, you have been silent for a little while.
Yes, Lofty. And I don't think that we should have allowed our Dominica police officers here to deal with a matter of that kind. And again, I will say there are some good police officers, but the silence of what poses as the government, and we know the hierarchy police officers, what they are involved in with Roosevelt. And if Roosevelt supports Jonathan, and we allow the police officers who support Roosevelt to rest their hand on a case like this would be the end of it. Lofty, I look at Dominica as a little Hollywood. And anybody who knows about Hollywood, this is what I see Dominica. Every single day you wake up in this country, before one problem is solved, another one begins. And the people who believe in justice, I'm saying, let's all stand together and say, we believe there should be police officers, FBI, or whatever they are, to come out of Dominica to deal with a matter like that. Because if you have our police officers do an investigation and you rely on them for proper information, this type of crime, I can tell you, Jonathan and his accomplice, they have already gotten out of it. But let's pray God and let's keep our fingers crossed that this man called Roosevelt will do the right thing. He will forget about the plans that he have had with Jonathan, if there was any before, because that's what it seems to be like, that he will do the right thing, not only for persons who wants to come here to invest, but for Dominicans themselves.
All right, indeed. Paula, thank you very, very much indeed for your comments here. Bernard, anything else you want to add before we bring it to a wrap?
Well, Lofty, it's interesting that our friend from the north, forget her name now, pardon me, commented on the Attorney General and his lack of voice. Because when I first read that the Attorney General's office, that the court had determined that the Attorney General should be included as an intervener, I found that quite strange because I don't know, very much about the procedures of the court, but I just found that, a case such as this, where you have a public road that's been established as a public road, and, according to law, is a public road, that based on the evidence, based on evidence sought after and provided by the planning department and so on and so forth, this I figured could be something that is quite easily determined in terms of, whether or not he had the right to stop people from using that road. And it was established in the court papers that he was not entitled to. But according to the information here, the Attorney General's office was included as an intervener, and appearances were made by Tamika Hyacinth Burton, Solicitor General, with Joanne Xavier Coffey of the Attorney General's chambers for the interveners. The Attorney General apparently did not make any appearance or submissions. I've also tried, without success, to try to get the actual submissions that came from the government authority, without, I haven't been able to find that, but it would be interesting to see how they presented their representations in this case, whether or not they expressed any form of bias towards one party or the other, or were they neutral. So that's yet to be seen. But my hope is that the family of Daniel and Dominique, and quite ironic that her name is Dominica, that their families will impose their authority over the bodies of their deceased loved ones, and have them extracted from Dominica. That's my hope. I don't know where the bodies are at the moment, but hopefully they will be able to get their loved ones back to Canada, and they will hopefully be able to utilize the expertise of persons in Canada who can examine those bodies and determine what substances were found on them, and how it is that they came to their passing. And that information hopefully will be made public, so that we can better inform ourselves as to what transpired. We have to remember, again, in the context of our Dominica and the governance that we are unfortunately faced with at the moment. We have a deceased gentleman who is laying at the morgue for over a year. Is it over a year now, Lofty?
Yes, a
And
year plus. Yes, a year plus.
yeah, and so there's been no explanation, no proper examination by an independent autopsy person to determine how it is that he came to his death. And that seems to be something that is being blocked by, again, the authorities in charge. I remember recently the police chief was saying that it's time for this body to be buried and disposed of, removed from the morgue. And so we wait to see what happens in this case. But hopefully, its families will get justice.
All right, we are right on the money. It's 8 o'clock in Dominica and the rest of our region. Thank you very much, Brother Bernard Aline, for being our very special invited guest here tonight. I can tell you, you really, really executed and did justice to the cause for the conversation tonight. Thank you very much, bro.
Yeah, I thank you for having me on. And as you mentioned earlier, I believe there's a meeting being planned on Tuesday at 6:30 at the Soufriere Church Hall, I believe it is. So I hope the Soufriere and Scots Head people and Galeon people will attend and they will voice their feelings. I hope that they will lead the way in a way that the Salisbury people have and the Marigot people largely have as well, to ensure that we somehow hold our supposed MPs to account and our government to account, and we bring about the change that's necessary to save our nation.
Brother Allen, thank you very much. Thank you indeed. Much appreciated from Civic
Merry
Vibes
Christmas
and the many, many folks listening and watching.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to all.
All right, my bro. Thank you. Go get your rest now, brother.
Yes, my bro. Thank you.
Yes, Paula, your final thoughts.
Let me give my final words here, Lofty. Lofty, the death of these two people, I saw it as great hatred in the heart of Jonathan, also great jealousy. And this is a lesson for any government that would come into office to make sure that they do proper background check of persons who intend to come to our country to invest, and to make sure that the record of these people, and that this illegal government, if the people who are here in Dominica and those overseas who intend to come to Dominica to vote for this illegal government, who has not been doing the right thing, and they have not spoken out on the death of these people, I want to say, if nothing else in Dominica, had you to change your plans and your mind, what you have heard and what you have seen and what you continue to hear have not had you to have a change of heart, to realize that it's time that these people need to go. Now is the time for you to make up your mind and say to Roosevelt and his whole bunch of ministers, it's time for them to leave office, because this should have never and was never supposed to get to that point. Lofty to all the persons who were looking to hear my voice for a very long time. I want to say I hope that I did justice to you all this evening. And everybody have a happy holiday. Thank you very much, Lofty, and thank you, Bernard Allen. And great thanks to Mr. Alvin and those at the back of the stage. Thank you, Lofty.
Lofty, without cutting you, Paula, thanks. Good to see you. Lofty, we have to keep an eye on what happens with the property that belonged to Daniel and Dominique. That's something that we really have to keep an eye on. Thank you again.
Any man should take a stand. It's about that olive branch you say, not about opposition to government. To come down from a farmer to a beggar, waiting on a monthly check, government welfare.
All right, Dominica, that is it.
This is no way for a man to live.
This one from Brother Soul Poo's done in 2022, entitled Living on the Siege.
And I'm expected to forgive while I'm still living on the siege.
All right, Dominica, as promised, just before I go, preliminary, and I want to repeat, it is preliminary results thus far indicates that at the United Workers' Party's delegates conference this evening, sometime earlier this evening, Dr. Thompson Fontaine re-elected as the leader of the United Workers' Party. Again, I want to repeat, Dr. Thompson Fontaine re-elected. He was successful again for a second time at the leadership of the United Workers' Party. I'm being told as well, Mr. Ronald Charles was successful at being elected the deputy leader of the party. That is Mr. Ronald Charles, the same Ronald Charles, being the deputy leader of the United Workers' Party. Mr. Lennox Linton retains his position as the president of the party. I'm being told, yes, indeed.
Or a teacher.
Well, I'm also being told as well from very reliable sources
a builder or a contractor
that it was only Mr. Clement Maslin and Dr. Thompson Fontaine that went head to head for the leadership of that party. And when the time came around for the deputy position of the party, Brother Clement Maslin declined the offer. That's it for us, Dominica. Thank you very, very much. It is 10 minutes past 8 o'clock and we got to go.
To government, to come down from a business owner to a beggar, waiting on a monthly check from government welfare. This is no way for a man to live. Can't buy a stove, cannot afford a fridge. And I'm expected to forgive while I'm still living on the sea.
All right, the last verse from the Soul Post, and then we are out.
Can hardly keep your faith, but I'm intending to keep mine. While the masses are growing poorer and poorer, you want to have everybody living in fear, harassing and arresting the youth of this land, police abuse of power and opposition. Now you blaming everything on Lennox Linton, but the longest road have a bend, and the longest road must have an end. I say it's about that olive branch you send, not about opposition to government, to come down from a bourgeois to a beggar, waiting on a
monthly check from government welfare. This is no way for a man to live. Counting coins cannot afford a prayer, and you expected us to forgive while we still living under siege.